Let's go. I was born to kill it. I was meant to win. I am down and willing, so I will find a way. It took a minute, now it didn't happen right away. When it get hot in the kitchen, you decide to stay. That's how it winners made. Stick a fork in the hater on my dinner plate. I walk into the fire like it's just a bit of flame. I switch my style up, push the money pile up. I'ma get rich with life. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Clydesdale Media Podcast, where we are featuring the athletes of the North American Semifinal for the third year in a row. I have the pleasure to talk to Jack Rozema. What's going on, Jack?
Not much, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah. So before I dive into a bunch of stuff, when I do these, I like to do enough research to get a good idea of who I'm interviewing. But for a lot of these semifinal interviews, I've talked to you guys enough times, like at the competitions, on these interviews, and so it's really just kind of a catch up. But for you, I went to your game site just to kind of get like your numbers for the last couple of years. Your profile pic on the game site.
Oh, on the CrossFit Games website?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still from my days at Ohio State Wrestling. So I think that was my, I don't remember like my early days, like freshman, sophomore year. So that was already, I don't know, 8 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that.
So I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
It is, if you said college wrestling picture, this is what would show up in the dictionary.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, no facial hair growing there yet, really. Just a little. Yeah, I think I was 19 or 20 probably in that picture. So it's crazy. Almost 10 years ago then. Yeah.
And you've not changed. Are you going to just leave it forever?
My picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a reason to change it. I don't really think there, like you said, there's not a better, athlete picture. I'm just, living the wrestling vibe going. Let that
Are
go.
you trained as a wrestler to have the death stare whenever you get your photograph?
Not really. I think I thought I was a lot tougher back then than I actually was. So it was more of a persona trying to put on, so I think I was just like, don't feel like smiling that day. Maybe I think I can't, it's kind of blurry. Maybe I had a little bit of a black eye in my left eye that day. Maybe I just didn't feel like smiling because I was getting beat in practice so bad. That's probably what was going on.
Yeah. So in years past, we've talked about your Ohio State days because I live here in Columbus still to this day, just north of the city. But you grew up in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Are you back in Grand Rapids?
No, so I've made a couple moves with the Army so far. So I'm an active duty attorney in the Army. So I grew up in Michigan, went to school and law school at Ohio State, where I wrestled and then went to law school. And then I did 2 years at Fort Riley, Kansas. That was my first duty station. And then now I'm at Fort Knox, Kentucky, as of last summer. So that's why the last 2 years I was in the West. This year I'm back in the East. So that's kind of why.
So are you full-time Army Warrior Fitness?
So not technically. So I'm affiliated with the team, and when I go to comps like semis and Wodapalooza and larger events like that, I'm part of the team. I represent the team, but my contract with the Army is such that after I graduated law school, I have a commitment to the JAG Corps. So I have to be a full-time attorney for a certain number of years before that contract is up. And so I'm still in that initial 4-year contract. And even though I'm qualified as a CrossFit athlete to be on the team, the powers that be in the Army have basically said, not right now. We're not going to allow you to be a full-time CrossFit athlete right now because you're still in that initial contract. So, but the good part is this assignment at Fort Knox has allowed me to be basically as much as I could be full-time without actually being full-time on paper, because my attorney office with the JAG Corps for United States Army Recruiting Command is like 3 minutes down the road. So I'm able to kind of come and go more so throughout the day than I would otherwise at like a traditional job where I would have to find a gym to train at, either the CrossFit gym in town, which is kind of what I would do in Kansas. I would have to drive 30 minutes to work and then figure out how to train either before or after it. And so this way, the last year has been good because it's allowed me to train a lot more focused and just make more use out of the hours of the day.
So real quick, Jamie Latimer, who is my co-host, and she was with me last year at semis. She's from Lansing.
So she's said, "Gotta love
Oh,
those
nice.
boys."
Yeah, for sure. Yep. That's where I'm from, like an hour west of Lansing and Grand Rapids. So,
And so
yeah.
I was up there for her. She's competing masters this year.
Okay.
And I was
Cool.
up there for her quarterfinals. And I love Grand Rapids. Any chance I can get to go over there, I love that place.
Yeah. Yeah. We just went to a concert there last week. So I'm always trying to find excuses to go back. Because I love the area, especially during the summer. It's the best. Like from now until Labor Day, there's nothing better than West Michigan.
So that brings up the question. They have an amazing competition there every year called Fresh Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been, or do you plan on ever going?
So yeah, I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same one. Fresh Coast Fit Fest in Muskegon on the lakeshore. Me and the two guys that are on Team 8th Day, so 8th Day CrossFit in the East. I think they were like 1 point away from making the games last year. So last summer I did the team of 3 male with Dylan and Michael, and we won it at the team of 3 competition for Fresh Coast. So yeah.
Yeah, and Rich showed up last year, Rich Froning.
Yeah. It was weird. Yeah, I didn't even know that he was going there. Or like was gonna be there, and I just like looked over and he was just like sitting there on the beach, and so it was kind of funny. We were like, "What's up, man?" So yeah.
So it is my goal to make it up there for that this year.
Yeah, it should be fun. Yeah, it's always a good time.
Yeah. I mean, CrossFit and beach and lake, like why not?
Yeah, this past year they had which I'm trying to still be as much a part of as I can. I'm kind of obviously not co-located with it, but they had beach wrestling there last year too, to kind of hit the wrestling part again. So to basically just throw a rope down in the sand like a ring, and this basically kind of freestyle wrestling rules where you just kind of wrestle from your feet, and whoever gets a takedown or a push out gets points. And so that was kind of cool. They had like the CrossFit floor, like rig floor set up, and then 50 yards this way was like the Pure, they call it Pure Wrestling, like the Pure Michigan logo, but they flip the M upside down and do it Pure Wrestling. So they'll have probably, I would assume they'll have that again this year with CrossFit going and then beach wrestling going right next to it. It was fun.
Yeah, all Jamie ever talks about is the competition, and then I think it's called the Pier Restaurant, where everybody goes.
Oh yeah,
like hammered after the competition.
yeah, it's right there. It's like right up the parking lot. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, that's how she sells it to me. So I don't know if that's just my personality that she's selling to.
Whatever. Yeah.
So we talked about Rich. Are you still a Mayhem athlete?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm Mayhem. I'm fully Mayhem everything. I love what they stand for, their values. I've been working with Coach Jake Locker a little bit more this summer. He's definitely what would be my coach. I'm not, I guess, the same as I'm not someone who feels like they need or likes to have a full-time coach that I'm always kind of hip to hip with. But definitely Jake has helped me out a lot this year. So definitely following Mayhem more than anything, and much more this past year, and working with Jake and everyone there. And now Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I live, is like less than 3 hours from Mayhem. So kind of going down there as much as I can to do little training camps and prep for stuff, which I think next week we'll be going down there to kind of prep for semis, to do like a little mock semis now that they released all the events too. So that'll be fun.
So Hiller was down there like a week or two ago.
Yeah, I saw that. I haven't watched his video yet. I saw he posted one like 48 hours at Mayhem or something.
Yeah, it was really, really enlightening. They showed where I can't remember the guy who kind of runs the facility, but he was talking about how like this is how you kind of qualify to be able to work out in the back room.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're still alive, you get to work out back here. If you're eliminated, it's for the athletes that are still alive.
Okay.
And it seemed like really brutal, but it made perfect sense.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, it's something to strive for, if you haven't reached that level yet. And yeah, it's kind of an elite membership of people that can be there and kind of build each other up and make each other better. Environment can help you a lot, and who you surround yourself with is a major indicator of where you're going to go. So that's why I like that area too.
Yeah. And getting to know you over the last few years, like you just seem like-minded with a lot of the people there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Their faith, family, fitness service is the order in which, and what I try to strive to have my life be revolved around as well. So absolutely.
So before we get into the CrossFit stuff, you had a child recently.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going? This is your second?
Yep. So we got 2 girls. Yeah, we got Riley, will be 3 in August, so she's 2 3/4 now. And then Jordan, my youngest daughter, was born in November. So in 3 days she'll be 6 months. So that's been it's been an adventure. It's been fun. My wife is awesome. She deserves all the credit for them being who they are, and she's the in the trenches, as I like to say, every day as a stay-at-home mom. So we're blessed to be able to be in that situation. So it's been awesome to be a dad. Definitely puts things in perspective for what you want your life to be and the example you want to set. So that's been a great journey so far. Not so much the nights that they decide they both don't want to sleep on the same exact night, which makes the next day and recovery and life in general a little bit more challenging. But that's what pretty much everyone who has kids will say. It's the most challenging, but the most rewarding thing. One of the most rewarding things you'll ever do. So
yeah, we got really lucky because we only had one. But I'm kind of a night owl, and my wife is like an early riser, so she would go to bed early. I would stay up with the daughter.
Yeah.
Then we'd go to bed. Then she would sleep in long enough for my wife to kind of get up, get her stuff together.
That's good. Yeah. Complement each other. That's good teamwork. You got to have good teamwork like that. It's important for sure.
Yeah. So sleep's good now going into semis?
Did you say sleep's good?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of they've both been well above average sleepers. Just when we talk to other people about their kids, like, and just what you read and see about other kids. They both, our Jordan's 6 months, she's kind of going through what they say, like a 6 month sleep regression right now, but like it's not, most nights they both sleep through the night. So it's been good. I talked to some friends and they look at me with their 9-month-old baby and they're like, we haven't slept in like 8 months because she don't go down for more than like 90 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, that's rough. I wouldn't know. But yeah, so it's everything. No, everything's been good. Leading up to semis, like, feel good. Body feels good. Training's going good. Everything is, really can't complain about anything.
So with all this going on in your life and you get closer to semis, is there a part of you that it's hard to kind of set the priorities still as you get closer to the semis? Or is that something you and your wife talk about quite a bit?
I think we do talk about it a lot, and we have a very good open relationship where it's like, hey, if I'm sucking in this area, like, we'll just tell each other, like, hey, you're not, you're falling short here. You're doing great here. What you're doing here is bothering me. So we just have a very strong relationship of communication, I think. And we kind of have those expectations already from just our first daughter, and kind of going through the season already. She's fully so supportive and so understanding of how much time it takes to dedicate to training, if you want to really be successful in this sport. And just kind of one example, what I just said, like when the girls get up in the middle of the night, or one of them, she's getting up 90% of the time because she realizes that, like, I'm trying to sleep to go to work and train, and come home and be present at the same time, and just with other things going on. But I think it's just a shared understanding that intensity kind of ramps up once the open is here and the season kind of then gets going. We have our kind of set schedules. And so those two kind of things work in tandem. Our experience at Fort Riley before, when I had kind of a more intense, my job as an attorney was a little bit more time demanding, and I lived farther away from the office. So being here has been a nice change in pace where I can just focus more, for a couple different reasons, on CrossFit, but also be really home more hours of the day too. So it's definitely teamwork. Like I said, she's amazing. I owe her a lot of credit for just putting up with my crap when I'm gone a lot, doing multiple sessions a day, plus working, plus, being involved with men's groups or church activities, or that we both do those as well. But it's just all comes down to teamwork, communication. Faith is at the center of our relationship, which is a huge foundation for us. And, neither of us are perfect. I'm far from perfect. I make mistakes all the time, but we just communicate with each other and we get it done.
So 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 you're in the Army. How much? I guess I don't understand what the JAG Corps does. Are you representing soldiers? Are you representing the Army itself? Or how does that
So
work?
both, yeah, both. It just depends on what job you do. And that's kind of what the appeal and what the JAG Corps kind of hangs its hat on is you can get this broadly skilled range of stuff because when you come in, there's kind of a templated experience of you do legal assistance, which is when you just work in an office and you have clients that are soldiers and retirees and family members of soldiers and retirees that can come to the legal assistance office and get legal help with anything other than criminal matters. That's a whole different field. Like if they're under investigation, if they've been charged with a crime, that's trial defense services, which is its own part. So you can be an Army prosecutor, essentially. You can be an Army defense counsel, which is what I just said, trial defense services. And then there's this whole kind of bucket of stuff in between there that you can be administrative law, which is what I do right now. And you basically you advise commanders in the command on how to basically do their jobs within regs, within Title 10 of the United States Code, which governs the military. And so you're really just in the sense your client really is the Army. And you might be advising commanders, you might be advising the unit that you're attached to for how to hold events, how to discipline their soldiers, whether they can do certain fiscal or monetary ethical things along with that align with both, different bodies of law, like just the United States Code or Army regulations or Department of Defense instructions. There's this whole body of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a long answer of what you just asked is the Army, the JAG Corps, and the Navy and the Air Force and the Marine Corps have their JAG Corps as well. You are that service's attorneys for whatever job that you're currently in, and there's a variety of them.
And then, is it typical you just stay in whatever group or bucket, or can you be moved around?
So there's kind of some flexibility with that as you go along in your career. You can stress to the command and to the leadership that you want to specialize more in some areas, but at the end of the day, you go where the Army needs you. It's the Army's needs, and then your needs go beneath that. So they can typically in the JAG Corps, you move more often than other assignments in the Army. You'll probably move every 2 or 3 years. 2 is kind of the default. You have to kind of beg and plead to stay somewhere longer than 3 or 4 years, and that's really typically only granted if you have family situations or if you're trying to specialize in a certain area. But typically they're going to shuffle you around. You can't really sit in one area. You can't just say, hey, I really like military justice. I want to be a prosecutor for my entire career. You might be able to get away with specializing for a few years, but once you reach a certain rank and you've been a certain place long enough, they're going to just have to keep shifting you around because that's the way things work. Okay.
Is it your goal to retire from the Army, or have you not made that decision yet?
My wife and I, we haven't really made that decision yet. We don't see ourselves staying in for a 20, 25-year career in the Army. But yeah, it's kind of just a year-to-year thing. One of, the JAG Corps, the 3-star general, who's the judge advocate general of the Army, came and visited when I was at Fort Riley. And just one thing he said stuck with me is that, like, even he, as someone who obviously would advocate for you staying in the JAG Corps, but he was like, hey, it's a decision that you and your family should look at on a yearly basis. Like annually, you should check in and say, do we like what we're doing? Do we like where we are? And are we happy with those 2 things? And if the answer is no, then go do something else. So I think once I think we'll still every 6 to 12 months, we'll check in and say, hey, do we like where we're at and where we're going to go? And if not, I'll do something else.
When and if you become a civilian, are you still an attorney in civilian life?
Yeah. So if I choose to, so I for a few different reasons, I chose to take the bar exam in Ohio. So I'm a licensed attorney in Ohio. But now that I'm coming up on 4 or 5 years as an attorney, I can most likely transfer to most other states, because the bar exam, when I took it, it was kind of transferring to this thing called the universal bar exam. And so really, if once you take a state that has the UBE and you score high enough, which I did to basically transfer into any other state that also does the UBE, you can just say, hey, I've been practicing for a few years. I have this score in my UBE. I want to practice here now. You pay your attorney's bar association fees, and then now you're licensed in that state as well. So yes, you have to be a full-on licensed civilian attorney first, and then you join the JAG Corps. That's kind of how it works.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense.
mhm.
So the CrossFit brought back the service open. Do you think that's important?
Yeah, I think as well. I think it's definitely important to involve those different bodies of people that obviously I think are the lifeblood of the community in a lot of ways. And I think it's good that they show that they're still supportive of that. Absolutely.
And then Mayhem is doing their own version of that, Everyday Heroes. And they're including frontline workers like the medical profession, teachers. Do you participate in those things, or because you have bigger aspirations in CrossFit, does that kind of go on the back burner?
So honestly, if I hadn't been traveling last week, I may have kind of do a few workouts and do the in-person, assuming I won the military version, the military leaderboard, to do the comp in Cookeville. But just for a couple reasons, mainly like you just said, my goals are to make and be competitive at the CrossFit Games this year. That obviously takes priority, and so things kind of leading up to that. I just chose not to do it this year, but I might do it next year.
Because you're so close to Mayhem, would it be fun to watch because if people don't know, the Everyday Heroes ends with an in-person competition with each group of people having a representative, and then you compete against each other to kind of see is
I'd love to see
better than police, better than fire, or so.
Friendly competition is great like that. I love seeing that. So I think that's June 22nd is the day that it's an in-person in Cookeville. So if I'm able to go watch, I honestly, I'm going to try to, because it'd be cool to see. Because I think you're right. I think it's male, female teams of the different service groups. So like you said, law enforcement against military, against teachers, against EMT or whatever it is, that whatever they have their leaderboard. So it'd be fun.
How much smack talk do you think happens in that event?
I hope a lot. I think I think the sport needs more smack talk and not as much kumbaya high fiving, which is good. I'm not saying that's bad, but I just think I think smack talk and friendly competition is good.
So you already talked about the last year you were in the West. This year you're in the East. There is a perception that the East is a much harder region than the West. But if that's so, it's going to have more spots than the West. So do you look at it as an advantage or disadvantage coming back to the East?
I honestly, the way I look at it, my goals are not to just make the games. I mean, I want to be, my goal straight up this year is to be top 15 at the games. So it's just as a benchmark, it would be my rookie year, assuming I make it. I want to place top 15 and then get invited and compete in Rogue in Scotland this year. So those are kind of my goals. I mean, I just look at it as I'm in a good, I'm 28. Like I said, my training last year has been great. That's my goal. I want to go win every event that I'm a part of, and just put the best version of my skills and hard work and support system out there and see what happens. And so that being said, I'm of the viewpoint that whether I'm in the West, East, or even Europe this year, it looks the most stacked when you just look at the scores of all the semifinals. Doesn't matter what semifinal in. I'm gonna go to the semifinal. I'm going to podium at the semifinal or be close enough to it to secure my spot at the games, and it doesn't matter where it is. That's kind of my mindset.
Okay, so let's go a little timeline. Last year in the West, you were flirting with that qualification spot. Yeah. You were bouncing. You were kind of in that little group that was bouncing above, below, and at the end of the weekend, you fell just outside.
Yep.
Was there anything you learned that weekend that took you forward that now gives you this belief?
I think I learned where I needed to work more. I learned just the holes that I had were too big of holes to be competitive in an event that only has 6 or 7 events in a weekend. And so if that's for me, it's like, hey, barely touching a barbell and doing a crap ton of inverted gymnastics and hanging gymnastics and rope climbs, and just dialing in sleep and nutrition more. which I've been trying to do, then that's what I have. So I've always had good self-belief and knowing that I can be out there and compete with them. It's just hard. It's just been hard when certain movements have came up that I just don't have a strong background in. And so that's over the last year, I've been trying to work in those areas as much as I can. And so that's just, so that's what, even without the events being released, those were my mindset. But now with 3 events being released that all have a moderate to heavy barbell in them, I think it's a good a year of it. I think it's as good a year as any for me to go out there and execute and compete right alongside the best of the sport.
If you were forced to call your shot on one event, what would it be?
Definitely the snatch ladder. I think I can place. I think I can challenge the best in the world, if not win that event. Assuming I don't miss, but I don't plan on missing. So, I love barbell work. I've always just strength has been a strength for me. And so if I go out there with the right strategy, and hit all my snatches, I think I can win that event across the board.
I got to say, Jack, in the 3 years I've talked to you, this is the most confident I've ever seen you. And I love it. I love every bit of it.
Yeah. So the confidence comes from preparation.
Your off season, you did some comps this year with some big hitters in it. You did you started with Crash Crescendo. You did that. You podiumed. It was not it had a top heavy group of guys, and you podiumed. Did that give you some confidence?
Yeah, that did. It was a good solid weekend of just like you said, being there with Austin, Colton, and James, and a lot of other great athletes, of throwing down in that environment with a lot of loud screaming people, and a lot of those events really hinged on how well you could execute. And even with that event, I had a bunch of stuff that I didn't execute to perfection, but I think that was a good event to test where I was at the time and carry. I still have the notes from that competition that I kind of frequent in my training. So yeah, it's definitely was a good experience.
So tell me about that. You take notes after a competition?
Yeah. I always do, whether I'm testing events before a competition or usually the night of a competition, whether it's a multi-day competition or not. I just kind of take some time by myself and write in my phone, whether it's a Google Doc or iPhone notes, and just write out the event, write what I was thinking right as it started, write what I was thinking, in the middle of where it was starting to get hard, like how I paced it and broke up the reps and stuff like that. And I just I just try to break stuff down as much as I can to try, even if it's something super small that I can carry on and reference back later. I try to do that as much as I can. So, yeah.
So as someone who was not at Crash, from what I understand, it is an event that is run so professionally. It's like being at a semifinal.
Yeah.
Did you
absolutely.
That?
Yeah. 100%. From the way that they have everything laid out to how you get corralled and everything is right on time. And just the judging, the movements, the workouts that are programmed or well-rounded tests. It's just a super zoomed in version of semifinals, basically, in a, you walk in and you're like, oh yeah, this is a regular everyday CrossFit gym that they just turn into an elite field of people that want to compete against other people in the sport that are really good.
And they have all the toys.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
So you get to work out at Mayhem sometimes, but I've never seen a trapeze toe to bar.
No, me neither. I don't think anyone did before they showed up there. We saw some hints that it was going to be in the event, but I never did one until we got there.
So when a competition offers those, for lack of a better term, odd objects, is that good for you in the off season to kind of just get your hands on weird things at times?
I think it's good if you can get practice on anything that's going to be in the competition is good. But I think it just, if you can do it, if you can't, whatever, you just better go out there and figure it out.
I say that, and then this year semifinals is about as classic CrossFit as it's ever been.
Absolutely. I love the events. I've always been a big advocate of getting back to just, hey, let's do really simple triplets, couplets, short chippers of the classic movements. And we don't have to get crazy and try to reinvent brand new movements every year and blah, 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 to try to make, the wow factor or whatever. I think we just need to stick to the basics of what made it attractive and what made people want to get out there and compete in these events, and that they're exciting to the finish. And I think this year is, since I've been competing, is the best semifinals program so far, but we'll see how it goes.
So Trish asks if I'm interviewing Jason Statham. You ever get that?
Someone literally, I honestly haven't gotten it that much, but I just had friends over for dinner like 2 nights ago, and he just said the exact same thing. So that's hilarious. So it must be a few people think that, I guess.
It's got to be the like the gruffy beard thing.
It's probably when I don't shave. Yeah. And so that's funny. A good part about being in the Army is, like, if you, they have certain policies now that are pretty beneficial to you. You might, the downside is, you move around every couple of years and stuff like that. But even me as the dad, I get 12 weeks of leave for when you have a child. So that's why I've not been to work in a couple of weeks, other than training, obviously. But I've not done my attorney job in a couple of weeks. So whenever I get a chance to not shave, whenever I get to the Army, I will not shave one more time in my entire life. So
Trish admits she doesn't have her bifocals on.
That's all right. I'll still take it.
And then back to the odd. Lynn Najiri says the odd objects are good practice for athleticism, which helps in the games.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
So you finish Crash, you have a great run there. Then you get to Wodapalooza and talk about like nothing going as planned.
Well, I think things went planned from the snatch complex, the lift that they had. I hit the number I wanted to there. And then it was just, it did rain all weekend, which everyone dealt with, it wasn't just me. So they changed the events a little bit. And I'm someone who does not have the slightest bit of a swimming background. I've tried, and I continue to put in, I try to do different workouts, get input from coaches, people with swimming backgrounds. I'm like, hey, watch my stroke. And they're like, yeah, that's god awful. You got to work on that. And I'm like, I know, I'm trying. I watch videos. I do different workouts. I've gotten better. Like, I'm certainly not one of the best swimmers, and not certainly a good swimmer, even in the eyes of CrossFit yet. But that's something that obviously you're going to deal with when you go to Wodapalooza. And once you get to the games, now that they're in Texas, probably maybe a short pool swim, if at all. So I think I've gotten to the point where I'm like, hey, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I'm not going to put as much of an emphasis on swimming, because I think for me, it's a net negative. It takes away from other holes that I can work on. And so that is kind of what happened at Wodapalooza. I was the last one in the water and the last one out of the water for that swim, and that kind of set me back. And then still just the other events, same, just execution errors here and there, and a really good field. It was a stacked field, so it is what it is. Really short. I think there was only 5 events that year, so or this past year, so it is what it is.
Well, so 2 things. One, I swam at Ohio State. So
you did?
Yeah.
Nice.
So when I watch CrossFitters swim, I get like all like,
yeah, sure. Don't watch me. Yeah.
Even some of the good ones are not really like using the best form. Yeah. And the other thing I learned a long time ago was that the correlation between wrestlers and swimming is not a good one.
Not great. No,
you
not
don't
great.
see good or swimmers, wrestlers that can swim.
Yeah, not often. Not often. Nope. I think Chandler might be the only good one that's ever came out of D1 wrestling. That's a good swimmer.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
I don't know.
and then so Carolyn Prevost co-hosts the show with me now, and she always says like her swimming is terrible, but like you said, it's not advantageous for her to make it better. She's only ever going to get maybe 5 places better in that.
Exactly.
And what does that take away from other? Because it's only ever going to be one event.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only going to be one event, and that's why I'm like, if I make it to the games, you got 12 to 15 events. Swimming is one of them. I'll grit my teeth and try to crack out at best middle of the pack, maybe beat 5 or 10 guys. And that's just going to be what it is for now, for the foreseeable future. Maybe I'll have some kind of breakthrough, or I don't know. It's like a mental thing with me. I literally used to just be absolutely terrified of the water, of basically like one step above, like, holy crap, I'm going to drown. Like I was like barely one step above. Like I knew I wasn't going to drown, but it basically felt like it when I jumped in the water, especially doing something else first. Now I've definitely gotten to the point where I can jump in the water and swim half mile if I need to. It's going to be pretty slow, but I know I'm not going to drown and I know I might be able to beat a couple of people. So, but that's hard when you're at an event like Wodapalooza and that's 1/6 of your score. Like it just is what it is.
Yeah, you just don't want to end up like Easy Muhammad, like floating around in circles in the ocean.
Yeah. Want to avoid that. Yeah.
So, you're a military guy, and military guys are known for like being punctual, timeliness. You go to Wodapalooza and like it's all up in the air. Does that mess you up, or can you go with the flow?
No, I think I'm pretty go with the flow. I think I say this all the time. There's a lot of being in the Army that I enjoy, but in a way, I think it's just my personality or just the way I've grown up. And I don't know my experiences, my collective experiences, but I'm the most non-Army person that you'll probably meet on the street. Like if you met me on the street, you probably wouldn't know that I'm in the Army, just because the way I talk and I'm laid back and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm generally unbothered by certain, because I'm just like, hey, I can only control what I can control. And the event schedule and the weather and certain like that, I try to spend zero time and energy on things that I cannot control. And that's one of those. So
I'm just going to finish up with, how's the health?
My health?
Yeah.
It's been great. We got nothing. I got 0 injuries, which I'm extremely blessed. Nothing nagging. As long as my girls keep sleeping pretty regularly, should be ready to peak. But no, my health is great.
So you're in optimal shape heading into semifinals. You've got all the confidence in the world, and you truly believe this is your year to get over that hump.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think I can go out on the floor and put my best product on the floor is good enough to win. Whatever's thrown at us. So like I said before, that comes through preparation. That mainly comes from my faith and my support system. That's the first thing that's most important to me. And so having that at the foundation, having Christ at the center of my life is where I derive all of my motivation, strength, and trying to find my path and what that's supposed to be. And for now, I'm going to try to be the best CrossFit athlete I can be. And I think that version of myself is good enough this year, right now, to be good.
So I'm a Christian man, and it's a lot of work to keep Christ in the center of my life. Like things come and things go, and it's really hard, and it's what I try to do. You're a Mayhem athlete. Paige Powers this week came on the Savon show and talked about how not making it to semifinals or the games this year because of the penalty situation, it's God's plan, and it may be a way for. How impressed were you with that response? And I know I would be so upset. Like in the maturity she showed to come out that way, like, was just so impressive.
Yeah, no, that's super inspiring. I think that's indicative of someone who has their values as in the place that they say they do. And when they say, hey, Jesus is Lord of my life, and all I'm trying to do is glorify him in everything that I do. And Romans 8:28 says, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, move and called according to his purpose. And so if you actually believe that, you have to show it in your actions and your beliefs. And no matter what happens with you, it's actually funny. I just sent this to my buddies the other day. I think it was yesterday, because I was listening to a sermon about Philippians 4:13 that says, in all, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And that's often quoted as, hey, I can do and achieve and go chase and pursue all these things because I have Christ. But actually the context of that verse is the previous verses. It's about Paul writing about how he's content in any and every circumstance. And so that's the context of that verse is Christ gives you the power to be content, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And so I think that, you can take that and apply it to every season of life, and say, hey, I'm content. My purpose is to glorify God. And I know that in all things, he's working for the good of those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. So I think that that's super inspiring to hear people actually live that out and be bold and proclaim it.
It's cool you said that, because Philippians 4:13 is my tattoo.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
That whole thing right there.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Jack, as always, it's so fun catching up with you. We will be rooting for you to make the games.
Appreciate that.
You're a Columbus guy, at least for part of your life.
Yeah. So, no, I'm definitely go Bucks. I mean, I grew up the west side of Michigan, so Michigan State fan. I don't like seeing the University of Michigan win anything. So I'm definitely am on board with the Ohio State University. Go Bucks, Buckeye Nation. That'll be a part of me till I die. Absolutely. Because of what that city and what that group of people, school, community, church, family, all different things that come from Columbus. I love it. So I'm always glad every time we talk, for sure.
So you and Paige Simmons are going to represent in Knoxville.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a Lady Buckeye, she'll be doing that as well.
Nice. Yep.
So with that, thank you so much for being on. Hey, everybody Jamie had to yell, go green.
She had to yell, go green from Lansing.
Yeah, Jamie.
That too. Go green. I'll say go green. Absolutely.
With that, thank you everybody in the chat. You guys have been awesome. Jack, as always, good luck in Knoxville. And I just tried to look for hotels right now, so hopefully I'll be there in a couple weeks to root you on.
Sounds good. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next time on the Clydesdale Media Podcast. Bye, guys.